So I've been driving the Squareback around for a while now, and overall it's been doing great. I noticed that when I was going uphill it was kind of a struggle, so I would really need to make sure I was downshifting and just rev real high, go real slow, and it's been doing all right. But after a few days of driving here and there, I've been hearing some backfiring noises coming out of the engine. So without the air cleaner, I decided to just run the engine. And I came here and I was revving the engine and a big old spark came out of the carburetor. Maybe because my valves aren't seated, or maybe I need to adjust my valves. So I think that's what I'm gonna do today. I am gonna go down there and readjust the valves from factory. I think Volkswagens used to set them at 4/1000ths of an inch, but I think they've switched that over to about 6/1000ths of an inch. So I'm gonna go ahead and find everything I need to get and get started. I've gotten the Squareback all lifted up, and before I got started, I took a look down here and it looks like I may have found some leaks. First one I noticed was this one here, and right above that is a little bit of dripping right here. And I think I know what the cause is of that one, because I didn't use the original style pushrod tubes. See how these are two-piece style, and this gold part threads into this one, and then these two nuts here kind of expand them apart from each other. And the reason why I decided to go this style was because technically these are kind of a lot easier to service rather than the original style ones where you have to crush. Because the original style ones, in order to replace them, you actually have to split apart the cylinder head away from the cylinders in order to make space for the actual pushrod tubes to come out of its place. With this style, I can just pretty much release these jam nuts here, twist this in so that it compresses in, and then I should be able just to pull these out. But I can already see that it is leaking a little bit right there. That is causing oil to land on this cooling tin, and here is where it's dripping engine oil. Now, upon my further inspection, I did also notice some transmission fluid. Follow that right up, and it's right here on the rail, and it's just dripping all over the place. And keep following it. Bam. Let me put some light on there. See that big old gash right there on the CV? So it's leaking transmission fluid out there onto the rail and onto the ground. And this is something I was not expecting to do today, so I may just go pick up the part and work on that this weekend. That was easy, but I don't have time to put that on today, so let's get back to the valve adjustment. Now, since I don't really have time to install this new boot, I'm just gonna clean this up and tape it up just temporarily, and then this coming weekend maybe I'll be able to replace the boot. But for now, she gets the good old duct tape. I don't know how that even tore like that. Yeah, that's terrible, but what are you gonna do? I'm probably gonna need to top off my transmission fluid too, so I'll pick some of that up this weekend as well. Now that I got that out of the way, here are the tools that I'm gonna be using for the valve adjustment. So the first one's gonna be this breaker bar. Doesn't have to be a breaker bar, it could just be a long wrench or something. I'm also using it with this extension and a 30mm socket. And I have a smaller one here in case this is too long for it to fit down there. So we'll see which one of those I'll be using. I'm gonna be using a 13 a flathead and a feeler gauge, and you need the 6/1000, which is 0.006. I ended up not needing this impact socket, so I used that smaller chrome one, switched up my breaker bar for this ratcheting one. Have that installed in there, rotate the engine basically so that the rotor here is facing to the number 1 cylinder cable. So I have that here, it's pointing to this one, you follow this one all the way through, and that goes to cylinder 1. I also have a 009 distributor, which has a tiny notch right here, so that kind of gives you a dead giveaway also that this is towards cylinder number 1. There's another way to verify that you are on top dead center for cylinder number 1, and we're going to go down to the valve in cylinder 1 and 2, and I'll show you what to look out for. You can see that with cylinder 1, both valves are closed, and you should be able to move the rockers. Cylinder 2, intake valve is closed and exhaust valve is open, meaning I should not be able to move this here. Last thing I can do to verify is to go back up to the top and move the shaft left and right with the socket, and as I turn the pulley clockwise and counterclockwise, I should see this rocker here going back and forth like that. So now it's confirmed that I am on top dead center of cylinder 1. Now I'm ready to start measuring the valve lash for intake and exhaust for cylinder 1. I have my feeler gauge here, the 6/1000 of an inch, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this all the way in down here at the bottom and just put this in between the rocker and the valve. And I can already feel that it's really loose for both intake and exhaust. And the way to adjust this is to remove these nuts here.
These nuts? Got him!
So I'm measuring back here and here, really loose. Once I have this nut loosened, I can use my screwdriver to tighten it just a tiny bit. Then measure. Still very loose. Alright, a little bit better. I could go a little bit tighter. Okay, there we go. Hold the screw and tighten the nut. Measure it again. Cylinder 1 is really good. Not too tight, not too loose. Moving on to the intake, and this one's already really loose, I can tell. I'm gonna adjust this exactly in the same manner as this one and go from there. Intake valve for cylinder 1 looks pretty good too. Not too tight, not too loose. So now it's time to move over to cylinder 2. And in order to get to this side, I basically have to go back up to the top on the pulley and rotate it exactly 180 degrees, leaving both of these valves here closed. These rockers are gonna be loose. Here we go, now we're on cylinder 2. You can feel that both of these rockers can move back and forth, you can hear that. Now to check the valve lash. The intake on cylinder 2 is a little bit more loose than this one is. This one seems kind of okay, but I'm just gonna tighten it just a little bit more. After these two, then we can move on to cylinder 3, then cylinder 4, then we'll be done with the valve adjustments. Here I am on cylinder 3. These are also very loose on this side. I've already cracked these open. Ow, fuck. Ow. Yeah, that big ass light just landed on my forehead. Ow. Makes it a whole lot easier by having a lift, but I don't have that luxury, so I'm working off the floor. So far, cylinder 3 exhaust was really loose. Moving on to cylinder 4. This one, not so bad on the intake. Exhaust is very loose. There we go. Last one is the exhaust here. Perfect. This job would be so much easier if I had 3 hands. One to hold the feeler gauge, one for the wrench, one for the screwdriver, and a 4th one for the camera, and a 5th one for the light. So working with what I got here. Now on to cleaning up these valve covers. I got brand new valve cover gaskets here. This is just some cork material, so it should be kind of bendy and not hard like this one. Now I've heard kind of a lot of mixed reviews about what to put on here. I think with these, I don't think I put anything on them, but seeing a lot of people on the internet actually use some kind of gasket, I think I'm gonna use this red RTV. Some people have even used, I think they use like this Permatex Forma gasket. This is what I used when I sealed up the case. I think that's a little too hardcore, so I'm not gonna be using that. And I think I've even seen some people use some kind of grease. I kind of wanna be on the safe side and just use this. I don't think I'm supposed to put any on here on the mating surface to the head. I think I just need to put some gasket on here to make it stick onto the valve cover. I got the silicone installed on this one and placed onto this cover. Here I just put that layer on one side. Now I'm gonna put it on here. Cool. So now that I have both valve covers on there, I checked to make sure I don't have the socket and breaker bar on the pulley anymore and put the rotor cap back on. Now I'm gonna get it to start and see how she idles. Wow, so I just took this out on a joyride and what a world of difference. So after adjusting the valves, I can definitely feel a lot more power going up and down the street. Before, I mean, it was kind of getting bogged down every time I try to put the pedal to the floor, but now it's like, it's pretty instant. It's like, it's almost like I'm driving a go-kart or something, which I guess these normally kind of drive like that, but just because I didn't have the right setting, it had just been really bad. So I'm glad I went through that. It's not perfect by any means, but it's definitely a whole lot better than what I was dealing with before. I do really need to double check my timing. I mean, I did it before, but it was kind of eyeballed, and I'm not 100% sure that it's actually as it's supposed to be. But for the time being, I'm really liking how it's driving. Maybe in the next couple of days I'll look into actually timing it properly, but I'm really happy with how I got this, so thanks for watching, you guys.